Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Meet the Masters. Tim Watson here with Master John Gallagher. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. It's
Good to hear.
Happy New Year. Absolutely. I am
Yeah.
hanging out in the office. It's one of those. It's really nice and sunny out, but when I open up the window over here, it just completely drowns me out. Not that you really need to see me anyway, but
You're looking handsome as always, sir.
that's right. Decked out in my dough block.
It's what all the good in people are wearing these
That's right. So what's new up in Pennsylvania right now?
days. Same old stuff, just the way I like it. Right? We're hoping governor closed things until the 4th. Just got my fingers crossed that that's the date he sticks with. But it's all a matter of numbers. I'm in the fortunate position that I don't make my living from Tongsuro, so I know other people have it a little more difficult, and the decision becomes a little more difficult. But those are the times we live. There are circumstances that we cannot control, and all we can do is go with them, do what we can.
So during the shutdown, are you teaching class virtually or?
Yeah, we have Zoom classes. I find that the first round in the spring we did Facebook Live, but I'm finding with my real job as a high school teacher, we're doing Zoom, and I got much more comfortable with that. And it is, in my opinion anyway, a better platform for having a group of people. Helps as an instructor to see people, and you have the breakout room thing that you can use if you want to work with a student one-on-one on forums or something like that, But yes, that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I agree 100%. We did the same thing when we first went virtual, and I just remember doing those Facebook Live classes by myself and
Yeah,
getting a great workout for myself. But
yeah.
It's just so
we know we're not supposed to do that either. It's like, no, you're not supposed to work out when you're teaching somebody, but it's like, okay, how do I do this?
Right. Yeah. So for me, what was hard was not having anyone to draw energy from. Yeah, it makes teaching on virtually tough because.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, there is that give and take that we have in a classroom, whether it's in a dojang or in a history classroom, and it doesn't come across as strongly. Although, like I said, I think Zoom is better for that, but not necessarily with the way Facebook has their Facebook Live set up or whatever.
Right. And then, obviously, like you said, in your other life, you're just a virtual man nowadays.
Yeah, truly. Yeah. Still have to poke myself to make sure I'm real.
That's right. You teach high school, correct? What subject?
I teach world history, but also it's still history. I am also a co-teacher in a humanities class, which is literature, art, music, and history. And it's team taught, and we go through, various aspects of how, this was going on in ancient Greece as far as their artwork and their architecture, and this was going on in their history, and this is the stuff they wrote. But the humanities part is ancient history, which I absolutely love. But there's also some philosophy part of it too. The foundations of Western philosophy, of course, lie with the ancient Greeks. So I get to teach that as well. It's a blast, and the students, I have the best students, man. They're so good, and it's just, I can't believe I get paid to do it. That's how good it is.
How, as a teacher in two aspects,
Mm-hmm.
How have you been able to keep your students engaged through Zoom? Because I know it's tough. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
And I have daughters that are in school, and to varying degrees it's successful.
Yeah, it is certainly more challenging because you don't have the physical proximity, and I can't. If you were in my classroom and your head was down like this while I was trying to teach you, I'd just walk up and tap on your desk or, something like that. I can't do that with a kid at home. But the way I was trained in college is our one of the education professor that was in charge of our student teaching and also taught a couple courses would always exhort us that, history is a story. And he would say, John, tell him a story. So I have quite literally spent a career learning all the stuff that isn't in a textbook and all the stuff that is fascinating about history and all the stuff that makes those names in a history book come to life. They were real people like you and I. And if you know some of that stuff, like, the love letters that Napoleon would write to Josephine, it's like, holy crap, this guy was head over heels in love with this woman. And she was just like, yeah, whatever, I mean, how many of us cannot relate with that?
Right.
And it's telling the stories. It's, teaching is also a personality thing. So, my students kind of shake their heads sometimes because I'll go off on this seemingly random tangent, but it's all a part. It's a plan. It's okay. I'm going to talk about this now. It's going to seem like it has nothing to do with the history, but it's giving you a break. And it's, it's that 10 to 15 to 20-minute focus time that we have as a high school person. We're an adult, as a matter of fact. So I teach you about history for this much, and now I go off on a tangent on how disappointed I am with the play of the Dallas Cowboys or something like that. Right? What does this have to do with history? Oh my God, Gallagher's bringing up football again. But then I go back to history again. Gave them the break. And they think it's just me being a weirdo, but it's the training I got. So it works.
I like the way you break that down. There's some people that can, teach and use their charisma and personality and just they fill up the room with their presence. And then there's others that can do that, like you said, by sharing stories and going off of their experience. And it,
You can do the same thing in the Tong Soo Do Dojang when
absolutely.
you're doing the hand techniques, and then while they're doing stretch kicks, you're telling them the story of, hey, I remember I was working with Grandmaster Shin one day, or Master Godwin, or one of those legends that we have been fortunate enough to know. And it's it's teaching them one thing, but at the same time giving them a break from what you were just doing. Provide some transition time as well. It's good education, educational practice, I guess I should say.
We have some people saying hello this morning. Master Marco says Tong Soo.
Tong Soo, sir.
Yeah, Pam Russell saying good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Lindsay, one of the great fans of what I've been doing. She tunes in from the UK often.
That is cool. Hi.
Master Leon says Tong Soo.
Awesome. Tong Soo. Tong Soo.
Master Amida says good morning.
Good morning, sir. I'm so glad you're here.
Yes, Natalie Walker from the UK, Brian Burkett, and Jovel from Costa Rica. So everyone's chiming in and checking in.
Pleasure. And thanks for doing this, sir. I mean, this is, it's a great series and it's very interesting and we all appreciate it. It gives us, we get to learn from these masters that we don't necessarily get a chance to talk to, even, at the clinics or something. We're busy training or doing whatever. Yeah. My question though is, did anybody ever ask you questions?
So yeah, the first one I did was with Master Setianto, and I was in the hot seat.
Okay. All right. Yes, I do remember that now that you brought it up. I was going to say somebody should interview you, but all right, you've been there, done it. Okay. I feel better now.
One of these days we'll run it back because we had some technical issues, and he ended up like taking a video of our Zoom conference.
Oh, really? Don't you love technology?
Yeah. So, maybe one of these days we'll do another official one. We'll have a guest, a guest person asking the questions.
There you go. You should do that. You were kind enough to do it for us.
Yeah. Going back to what you said, you see these masters, you see the people that have spent their lives doing Tong Soo Do, and you see them as a person, but this, for me, is what you said. We're filling in the blanks, right? We're going off script from, this fourth or fifth or sixth Dan master that's up there and has the respect and admiration of people. and they're just people like like you and I. So I like how you said that, because that, in a way, that's what we're trying to do here. So
More than just a belt.
that's right, absolutely.
Well, we try to be anyway.
Yes, I think,
Some succeed at it, others.
yeah. So speaking of the belt, let's talk about how you started your journey. Like how did you get into the martial arts? Where did that?
Well, I started training on June 20th of 1983. And my very first Tong Soo Do class, Master Jim Horwath and I walked in together. We've known each other since 7th grade. And we actually, in our high school years and post-high school years, we worked in the same supermarket together. And one of the gentlemen that worked there, he was a baker, as a matter of fact, worked in the bakery, was a Tong Soo Do instructor. And he had classes at the local YMCA. So Master Jim was kind enough to talk to him one day, and he said, yeah, I have classes here. Come on over sometime. And, we talked about it. See, I've always been interested in this. Let's do it. So on June 20th of 83, we walked in the dojang together, started training together, and basically haven't stopped. That's about it. But I was always interested. This is such a weird part of the story, but I was always interested in the philosophy of the martial arts. When I graduated from high school and I left the supermarket, I worked in a soda plant. And this was before the days of VCR, at least before the Gallagher family had a VCR. And a New York TV station, I think it was Channel 11, as a matter of fact, used to show old Kung Fu reruns, the Kung Fu series with David Carradine.
Sure.
And they would show it at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I would set my alarm for 2 o'clock in the morning, get up, watch that hour-long show till 3, go back to bed, and then get up at 6 or 7 and do that. And the philosophy of like Master Po, the blind guy, and what he would teach to Kwai Chang Caine and stuff like that, just fascinated me. And fortunately, my first Tong Soo Do instructor, a gentleman by the name of Master Dan Hawes, combined the philosophy and the training together, and it just stuck, I guess. Either that or I was too stubborn to stop. I don't know, one or the other.
It's interesting, doing these interviews. There's generations of martial arts themed movies or shows. So you have Kung Fu, and then like my generation was Karate Kid, Best of the Best, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Talked to Miguel Soto, and for him it was the Ninja Turtles.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I bring up the first Karate Kid in class all the time, because it was, what's his name? The guy who did the choreography for that was a Tong Soo man.
Yes. I can't think of his name right now, of course.
Yeah. Somebody will put it in the chat. But even, you watch the old Bruce Lee movies, and that one scene in I guess it was Enter the Dragon, where one of the other characters, an old actor, was like threatened on a golf course. Right, those 5 guys that were working for the mob guy were all Tong Soo men, and that's the early actors, especially the bad guys, were Tong Soo Do martial artists.
Pat Johnson.
Yeah, that's him. Let me put it in there.
Master Leon put it in there right away.
Thank you. Yeah. That's how I started.
Nice. So, at what point? So you said, what was your instructor's name originally?
Master Hawes, Dan Hawes.
So at what point did you end up joining the World Tong Soo Do Association?
Well, he was an independent. He didn't, for most of my training, he didn't belong to any organization. But then one of the other local martial artists started his own organization, and Master Hawes joined him. Okay. And at one point, things with his career kind of bottomed out and stuff like that. So he decided, I'm going to leave Pennsylvania and I'm going to move to Florida. So he said, by that time, Master Horwath had moved on to sunnier shores at college, and then eventually he was working in Philly. And basically, Master Hawes left the school to me. So I started teaching at the Y, and that's where I taught for a long time. I was a member of the same organization that he belonged to. One of the gentlemen, the gentleman who ran it in the Lehigh Valley here was just a phenomenal martial artist. He was a big guy, like strong weightlifter kind of dude, but he was so fast and his kicks were so high. It was like, holy crap, this guy is awesome. But there was a time, and let me preface this with I don't mean this as a criticism of him at all, but I was teaching a couple days a week at the Y, and I wasn't training enough and I wasn't learning enough. I said to him, hey, can I start coming to class at your dojang? Because I want to train, I want to learn. And he said, I understand why you're doing that. I understand that you want to get better. But he was in the process of developing what he called his own style. He knew like 5 different martial arts, and he was combining the techniques and the philosophy and the theory of those into his own system. And he said, but if you train with me, then I won't have control over what you're learning and who you're teaching it to. And it was disappointing, to be brutally honest. It's like, okay, so you don't want me to get better because you're afraid I'm going to show people what you're showing me. I understand now. That was the selfish part of me, was kind of bitter at that. But I understand now he was developing something that he was creating. It's like, you know, a musician writing a song and then having somebody else, you know, get money for playing it, you know. So I understand that now. But by that time, Master Horwath was in Philly. He was training with Master Casarano, and he had told me stories of his training in the association. So I sent a letter to Grandmaster Shin. This was an old style, you know, snail mail letter. In just like 2 days, I think it was, I got a response back from Master Casarano. And this was in December of 1990. I didn't officially make my decision and join until the spring of the following year, but Master Casarano used to have a tournament that he ran. I don't know if you remember that. I think it was every spring he held that. I went, Master Horwath invited me down to come and see it and watch, and I met Grandmaster Shin and Master Casarano, watched the tournament, and thought, yeah, this is for me, right? And so I joined. Grandmaster was kind enough to backdate it from my original inquiry. So I've been a member since December of 1990. And, you know, it was obviously I would join the instructors classes and stuff like that. And it was that same year, as a matter of fact. We always used to have the instructors dinners. And at that time, our spouses were invited to the dinner. So that year, it was 1991, we had the dinner at a Korean restaurant. I think it was in North Philly somewhere. So we had to go from the old headquarters where we trained to North Philly. And lo and behold, my wife and I got lost. Of course, I didn't ask for directions, of course, because I'm a Tong Su man. I don't need directions, right? And before, you know, stuff on your telephone and all that, we got there late, walked in the restaurant, and everybody had sat down already. There was big, long tables in this back room. We walked in, my wife and I. The very first person to get up out of his seat was Grandmaster Shin. And he like went to another table, grabbed 2 chairs and said, here, you sit here next to me. The bigwig of the association, Grandmaster Shin, like shot up out of his chair and said, here, sit here with me. They thought, holy, you know what? This is one amazing man, right? You don't have to say anything else, right? And that personality of his just ripples through the association, and it continues to do so. I mean, you look at our leadership now, Grandmaster Strong, Grandmaster Bodwin, and all the senior masters, they are his people, and they show it every single day.
Yeah, that's awesome.
There you go. That's a long-winded answer to your story. Sorry.
No,
I should have the date. December 1990. Boom, done. Shortest interview on record.
That's what we do. We go long-winded. We got an hour to fill.
And I haven't been teaching lately, so nobody's listening to me.
But hey, 30 years to this month. 30 years. How about that?
Yeah.
That's
cool.
crazy.
Good choice on my part.
When you came in, did you come in? I'm assuming you came in as a black belt to this.
Yeah, I was a third Dan, as a matter of fact.
Gotcha. Yeah, you were talking about the instructor that didn't want you to teach or give his stuff away. And then you talk about Grandmaster Shin, who encouraged people to go out and get
Yeah.
stuff and new information. So it's a different philosophy. If it's a different way to think about things, but again, it just shows you the separation of him to, I don't say more mere mortals, but
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
people who have
It's yeah.
they have that vision. They have the vision of what they want to create, and that it's more than them.
Yeah. And again, to be fair to this other gentleman, um, he passed away a couple of years ago, as a matter of fact. I mean, if he wasn't more concerned, and he was trying to make a name for himself, and trying to, the competition among karate schools has always been fierce. And he was looking for something to set himself apart so that he could get more students and make this his livelihood. So I completely understand that. But the other aspect of that is, had he not said that, then I never would have inquired about other organizations.
Right.
I actually did send a letter to the Murakwan Association as well, and I never heard back from them.
Hmm.
But that really didn't matter, because as soon as I met Grandmaster Shin and Master Kazurano and saw that tournament, and with, of course, Master Horwath's recommendations of how well things were done in World Tang Soo Do, it wouldn't have mattered anyway.
Right. Yeah. If Master Horwath says it's good, then he's
Yeah, you can trust that guy.
yeah, he's yeah. Well, I think I said this earlier off on the email I sent you, between Master Horwath and yourself and Master Guider. He started right before you guys came to association, right? Not too long before that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And he shared the story of he lived next door to you or near you.
Yeah, right next door, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
So yeah, you have a knack of drawing in good people.
Well, I'll give it more to Tang Soo Do than
There you go. Oh, okay, fine.
you know.
So along those lines, or going on that timeline, when did you start teaching high school, or what did you start in high school, or?
Yeah, I am what I refer to as a late bloomer. I graduated high school in 1981. The last thing I wanted to do was sit in another classroom. I wasn't a bad student, but I wasn't as good as I could have been. And I just didn't want to sit in a classroom anymore. And I had this romantic notion that a job where you got dirty and had to take a shower at the end of the day and your clothes were all dirty and you were stinky and sweaty was a real job. So I got this job, as I said, in a soda factory, and I worked there for 5 years, and went through some trials and tribulations there as well. But interestingly, it's just, it never ceases to amaze me, sir, how what I like to call the rivulets. A rivulet is a little stream of water, how the rivulets of life, of people's lives, flow together. And there was a guy there who was perhaps the most angry person I've ever met in my life. He was just, I mean, if you breathed wrong, he would get PO'd. He also had a license to carry a weapon, which made him an incredibly dangerous man. But for some reason, he took a liking to me. And he would tell me almost every single day, Johnny, what are you doing here? You're better than this place. Get out of here. But he used colorful metaphors, shall I say, for every part of speech. So it was much dirtier than I will share with you. And I guess I am a slow learner, because after 5 years, I finally realized, yeah, this guy's right. Tom was his name. Tommy was right. And by that time, I had been training in Tang Soo Do. Eventually, I started teaching. Master Horwath and I actually started teaching at another local YMCA before my instructor left to go to Florida. And so I was working in the soda plant, and I was teaching Tang Soo Do at night, a couple days a week. I was trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do? Where should my life go? And it was actually through Tang Soo Do. And you show somebody something and the light bulb goes on over their head, and how incredibly rewarding that is, that you just helped somebody learn something. I thought, well, I always liked, there's a lot of twists and turns in the story, but let me shorten it up as to not put anybody asleep here. Um, what do I like? And I liked history. I always loved history class in school. So I said, why don't I do that? And it's one of those amazing things that we've all experienced in Tang Soo Do. No offense to anybody who does anything different, but I have the single greatest job in human history. I teach fantastic young people the ins and outs of history. It's the best job in the world. And Tang Soo Do led me to that. If I didn't teach Tang Soo Do, I never would have experienced what that was like. And now I do it during the day and at night. I mean, that is absolutely incredible. But it was Tang Soo Do that gave me the courage to do that, to basically say, okay, I'm going to quit this job and just go back to school full time. And like I said, there were a couple of twists and turns there, but graduated. And there was a time where when I first graduated, like many other social studies teachers, I didn't have a full-time job. There's a ton of social studies teachers out there. So I was day-to-day subbing, and we used to drive by this school. My wife and I played on a softball team with her work. And we used to drive by this one place on the way to a field where we played. And I thought, oh man, if I could get a job at that school, it'd be so good. Because I know of the school. It was a really good, high quality place. And they had an opening, and I sent a letter in, and lo and behold, they hired me. What a horrible mistake that was. Right. But I've been teaching in that school district since 1993.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
Hey, as you were telling that story and talking about, the fantasy of having the job that you get dirt under your fingernails, you wanted to live a Springsteen's.
Yeah. That's it. Always been a Springsteen fan too.
That's right. You love the Springsteen. You had to work in the factory.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there is absolutely something noble about that, and there's learning to be had wherever we go. And I always, whenever I'm doing something tedious and my mind starts to wander, I think of stacking pallets of soda, and how there was a point where I realized that even that could be noble if you did it as mindfully as possible. I wanted to build, there's like 9 layers of cases on 5 layers of the forklift comes in and takes those away. It's like, okay, I want to build the most perfect pallet of soda ever. And it works. I mean, you don't think about how your hands, like I would wake up in the morning and my hands would be stuck like this because of I actually had to do this to open up my fingers. Wow. And my back hurt and all that stuff. And it's a tiring thing to do, to put it mildly, but it can be invigorating as well. And that's a lesson you learn in Dojang. I mean, how many times have you done Sege Hyongyobu, right? Can you even count that high? No. But you still put everything into it because that's what it teaches you, right? And if we can apply that to other areas of our life, then Grandmaster Shin is up there and yep. That's what I meant. That's what I was talking about. Yeah. Yeah.
Couple people saying hello. Master Marker says, thanks for being a great mentor. Candidates. Eve Diane says, thank you for all that you do, Master Gallagher.
Thank you, Eve.
Master Mamita says, you teach old people like me the ins and outs.
Oh, I don't know about that. Number one, he's not old. Did I ever tell you? He was it last year, sir? I forget. Was it last year or the year before? He was a surprise guest at our New Year's training. Master Geiter arranged for him to come up. And I just, waiting for people to come. This car pulls in and out steps Master Mamita. I'm like, holy beep, right? Unbelievable. But he was kind enough to help teach some of the people that were there. And I kid you not, sir, the single greatest stepping reverse punch I ever saw in however many years of Tang Soo Do, Master Midas did on that day. He stepped forward, bam, threw this punch, and it was exactly how we're supposed to throw a punch. I don't know of how many of us actually accomplish that, but he does. Thank you for that inspiration, sir.
Absolutely, yeah. He always jokes that he's got one good kick left in him. Apparently, he's got a couple good punches
Oh,
still.
oh yeah, I would not want to get hit by that sucker. That's for dang sure.
You, we've been talking a lot about teachers. So when you joined the association, was Master Casarano, was he the guy that you kind of pegged as your teacher, or who?
It was a little bit later on. There was a point, and Master Robinson, of course, is like he's got this like photographic memory for dates, man. He could tell you the day and when it was, a year, and all that stuff. As a history teacher, that's so strange. I can't do that. Yeah, that's really weird, isn't it? I tell my students all the time, if I don't remember the date, you don't have to either. But there was a point where it was recommended to us that we find a mentor. That look, if you're going through this process and you want to keep going, then you need somebody to mentor you here, not just this one Sunday a month, but somebody you can go to. And Master Casarano was kind enough to agree to that with me. So I would drive down once or twice a month, maybe. Some months I would miss, and I would go to his school and basically join his class. And Master Casarano's classes. Yeah. This is another story I tell my students all the time. Like if you were the senior person in his dojo, you were standing there, the heating vent was right in front of you. And of course, he didn't turn the air conditioning on and he didn't turn the heat on, but well, I think he switched it because, you would be there going through one of his hellacious classes where you're breathing so hard, the paint's coming off the wall, and then the heat would kick on and blow right on you. It's like, oh my God, you're doing this on purpose, right? I mean, you didn't say that, of course, but you're thinking, you turned the heat up, didn't you? Right? But he was kind enough to let me train with him. Let me bleed in his dojo once in a while too. Those stories of accidents we have.
Sure.
God, what a dummy.
Master Vittori shared a story. He said that he was on and off going, and Master Casarano would be like, "Oh, just come in. We'll take it easy for the first night."
Oh yeah. Yeah, his easy is another person's heart.
Yeah, and then he would proceed to not take it easy.
that was easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Master Casarano.
Yeah, that's he's another one who, keeping his memory alive. I didn't know him personally, but knew him from obviously being in Region 8 and knowing all of the people that he inspired.
Yeah,
he was definitely one of those quiet giants. Like he led by example.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and he was a fantastic technician. He also knew how to kind of lighten things up. He was a jokester, so to speak, but his jokes always seemed to come at the right time. Things were getting maybe a little bit hot, contested, and he would just let one of those loose, and everybody would be like, "Yeah, stop taking yourself so seriously." But it's interesting, sir, because he was, and it didn't really dawn on me until I was thinking about this interview and stuff. But he was kind enough to let me come down and visit with him when he was ill. And there was one day, I guess it was a beautiful day, something similar today, but probably warmer. And he said, "Let's just go out for a walk." So we walked around the block and we were talking about Tongsudo and this thing and that thing and the other thing. And, I went to see him because I thought it would help him. But he agreed to let me come because he knew it would help me. It's like, okay, yeah, for however many years he's been in heaven now, it finally dawned on me like last week that he was helping me, not the other way of freaking around. And that's just the kind of human being he was. And it's something to keep in mind if we have loved ones in those situations. That's, yeah, we're doing it for them, but they're doing it for us too. There is that two-way street. And that's what Tong Sudo preaches as well. Master Britt. I remember talking to him once, especially when I took over the candidates, and it's like, all this. I always said to my students, like, the first rule I'm going to get rid of if I'm ever Grand Master, which will never happen, but that's another story, right? Is that whole bowing thing when I walk in a dojo. I said, why would you interrupt your training for me? And Master Britt said, John, it's not for you. Those rules are for them, not us. It's when you take it that it's yours that your head starts to get really big. Remember, you're doing a service to your students by teaching them that. It's like, oh my God, I'm definitely a slow learner. It took me decades before somebody was kind enough to smack me in the back of the head with that. And of course, Master Britt was good at that too. But these are the kind of people you meet in Tong Sudo, right? Master Casarano, Master Britt, Master Robinson, Master Fattori, Master Mamitis, and we could talk, you're just naming people all day long.
So, when I was coming up, I was one of Master Godwin's students, and when I first got to black belt camp, we would sit up in the bleachers, and then they would have the masters line up in the front, and we switched it around now because we've got the auditorium, but it would always you and Master Robinson always tended to sit next to each other, and then of course Master Midas would joke about you guys being the grumpy looking bald guys or something.
Well, one of us was. The other one was more congenial. I'll let Master Robinson decide which one was.
That's right. And that's the first time I got to work with Master Calzerano. I still remember doing row high with him, and he would yell about doing that for those first two moves faster, and we would just be out in the sun, and he'd be yelling at us for that. And
yeah, still, that brings back fond memories, doesn't it? When you do that form, it's like you're thinking of him,
right?
And that's one of the benefits of training with seniors like that is like, oh yeah, that example they provide and the memories that we can attach to really help us. I know we're not supposed to necessarily be thinking of another person when we do a form, but sometimes it comes out, and that's not a bad thing.
It's interesting because believe it or not, there's parts in Kunsan-kun that I think about you when I do, when you talk about like rushing forward, like that same move in Basai, the rush forward and attack.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So I think of you when I do those moves, and I actually tell my students that there are certain moves that I have that anchor, that memory. It was like, oh, Master Robinson taught me this, Master Casarano taught me this, Master got, and for me that's important because it reminds me, like even little things like I used to do this a lot, and Master Lee from Holland just one day just did that.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I never forget that.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we have, well, of course, we'll pass that on, so that memory lives on.
Sure.
But then there's those things that you do for your students that they'll always remember.
Absolutely.
And they'll pass on. It's an amazing little profession we've got here.
So black belt camp, when I think of black belt camp, one of the things I think of is the torture that
the training, you mean?
that used to put us through the conditioning. And you've done and passed on to Master Horwath throughout the years as well. How did you get that job? So I think we do forms with Grandmaster Shin, and then we'd all line up in the field, and then you would take us through about 30 minutes of
various things.
Yes.
Well, Master Midas was kind enough to ask me to do that. Of course, I should say, many of our seniors have fond memories of Master Beam leading us through stuff like that. Not necessarily so much the calisthenics, but the Tong Sudo discipline. And it was a time where I remember he was making us do like, I don't know, our like 1,000th push-up or something like that. I just started laughing because there's no way you can expect somebody to do this many push-ups. But he knows that, but he's going to make you do them anyway because he wants to see if you're going to try.
Right.
And one of the things I remember learning, I don't know, maybe back in the 1990s, maybe even before that. So I remember reading a quote from a boxer saying that he would much rather fight an excellent boxer in mediocre shape than a mediocre boxer in excellent shape. And I never really considered myself the best technician, but when I read that, I thought, wow, that's something I can do. If I'm in better shape than the other guy, then I'll win the fight. I can protect myself. So I started researching a lot with Master Horwath's inspiration, as a matter of fact, of conditioning and various exercises. And he and I have been using kettlebells for conditioning since like the early 1990s. I know they've become more and more popular in the years, but there's just a lot of variation of exercises, calisthenics, and things you can do. And, it ultimately comes down to the fact that I'm lazy as well. And it's strange to say, but I would much rather like bust my butt for 20 minutes and get my heart rate up really high, right, than run at a slow and steady pace for 60, right? I just, it's like Tong Sudol, we have those points where we're driving. We think we can't do it anymore, right? But we keep going anyway. And so I did a lot of research, and Master Horwath and I bounced ideas off of each other, and I just started using that. And the conditioning is something we can all do.
Right.
We want to be great technicians. If you can be a great technician and be in fantastic shape at the same time, holy crap, you're going to rule the world. If you want to.
Yeah.
That's how that started anyway. Blame it on Master Midas. It's all his fault.
And then Master Horwath helped push it along with various
His deck of cards and all that other fun stuff.
Oh, yeah. I remember the birthday of the burpee.
Oh yeah, that was a good one. Yeah. Yeah.
It's one of those where it helps having someone like I had Master Setianto right next to me, and it's just like, all right, I'm not gonna keep up with him, but I'm gonna keep pushing like he is.
Ride in his wake, or somebody's
right.
riding in yours too. Yeah. It gets absolutely ridiculous at a point, doesn't it? It's like, okay, are you serious? Right? But you keep going anyway, and that's what we're taught.
Angel Salona says our Tigers and Dragons love the deck of cards for Zoom lessons.
Oh, very good. I got to use that.
I know.
That's a good suggestion, man. Thank you so much.
I'm totally going to use that too.
Yeah. Boom.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
See, we're helping each other.
Yeah. Tong Sudol is that way. World Tong Sudol especially is that way.
Absolutely. So as far as going through the years at Bethlehem Martial Arts, we've all as martial arts instructors and just practitioners have seen people come and go. You mentioned Master Horwath, who's been with you for years, and Master Gallagher, who now is doing his own thing at Saucon Valley.
Right.
And then it's one of those things, you look at that picture I shared of you at Master's Clinic. It was Master Casarano, yourself, Master Gallagher, Ian Glickman. I can't forget Mr. Glickman. And of course, Dave Cuddy. If you could just talk about, I know we only have so much time, but just talk about the influence of those guys in your martial arts journey.
Yeah. Well, Master Casarano is Master Casarano.
Yeah.
Of course, the other gentlemen, Mr. Glickman, Master Gallagher, Master Horwath, we talked about them. And we've been training together for a long time. And they are high-ranking black belts in World Tong Sudol now. And of course, that's a testament to something in our martial art that they see a value. This is important. And it's going to help me. And of course, once you get to black belt, and especially a couple stripes on your belt, you realize that it's not about me anymore. It's about those people standing behind me. And they have all, of course, devoted themselves to sharing what they have learned in Tongsudo with other people. You couldn't run Bethlehem Martial Arts Academy without Master Horwath or Master Glickman or Mr. Campbell, Sean Campbell, who's been around for a long time. And of course, Mr. Cuddy is still the heart and soul of our dojang. For those people that have never met him or don't know him, he is the consummate martial artist. That's all there is to it. He started, I don't even know how old he was when he started, maybe in his 50s or something like that. But he was a Marine, is a Marine. Even in heaven, he's a Marine, right? Because you're never an ex-Marine, right? But he was completely dedicated to Tongsudo. And when he got his black belt and his third dan, worked his way up to third dan as actually officially a fourth dan in the association posthumously, he would help teach all the time. He was just an amazing example of a martial artist. And he would train not only in Tongsudo, but he did some Aikido training. He would go to the guard clinic that Master Molinaro would run all the time. He did Krav Maga. He would bring those things into our dojang and put them in a Tongsudo context, and not necessarily teach other martial arts, but teach this is how we might do it in a Tongsudo way. He was just an amazing individual. One of the fondest memories I have of Mr. Cuddy is that his children were older than mine, so mine were still in high school. And there were times when it would be like a Wednesday or something like that, and I would say, it was the end of class. All right, Mr. Cuddy, it's time for us to go. We'll see you. Thanks for your help tonight. I'll see you tomorrow. And he would look at me like, what do you mean? I said, well, I'll see you tomorrow for class. He said, doesn't your son have a volleyball game tomorrow? And I'd say, yeah, but we have class. He said, no, I'll take care of it. Go to your volleyball game. Right? And we know Tongsudo is a positive benefit in our lives. Toying with something here, but here's the thing, and yeah, this needs to be said. Here's the thing: nothing in this world is 100% positive, and nothing in this world is 100% negative. It's the and the yang, right? You got to have both. And Mr. Cuddy helped me realize that I was sacrificing time with my family to be with other people, other people's children, for example, and my children were being shortchanged. It's the idea that, like, my wife is a first degree black belt in Tongsudo, in World Tongsudo. Her paper for her first dan was about being a karate widow. How she would not see me because I was here, there, and everywhere doing Tongsudo stuff. And Grandmaster Shin actually wrote her a handwritten letter saying, can I put this in the newsletter? Because this is important for people to know. And it's one of the reasons why I will always have a special place in my heart for Mr. Cuddy, because he knew. He purposely checked Liberty High School's volleyball team schedule so that he knew I was supposed to be there on that night, not here. And, you have the young masters like yourself and your wife, and the Salonas, and the Saint Yantos, and the priests who have made Tongsudo a family thing. So you don't have to sacrifice family time for Tongsudo because it's things your family does together. That is a very valuable lesson. And sometimes we need to hear that. We need to know, like, again, think of Master Midas and how his son, I'm sure a lot of people know this, was a world-class figure skater. And he would drive from Lancaster to Delaware with his son and basically sit in that ice rink watching his son practice for hours a day because he was a father, and a father who happened to be a Tongsudo instructor, not a Tongsudo instructor who happened to be a father. Our codes are not just things we value, but it's hierarchical as well. Country, family, friends. You got to remember that. It's admirable the way your family and other families do that. Well done, and thanks for that example. Thanks, Mr. Cuddy.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the life has to have balance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's even still it's tough because you still have to juggle. And yeah, I teach Monday through Thursday and evenings. My kids get a chance to come in sometimes. 2020's made it harder for them to just come in and be at the studio if they're not in class.
Right.
But like you said, you figure out a balance. It's nice. It's hard to do the virtual, but it's also nice to be able to have them at home and spend some more time with them as well.
Indeed, yeah.
So Master Wolverton says hello, and she says you're one of her favorite people.
Thank you, ma'am. The feeling is very mutual.
I think that's a good segue to talk about the opportunity you had for 4 years, 5 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
To help out at the Master's Clinic and help guide people through the candidate the candidate process. You said a little bit ago where you were talking about being able to lead from the front, and I think that's a good example of stepping up and helping out in that capacity. When I went to the Master's Clinic for the first year, it was your first year doing it as well. And, I appreciate your guidance and your group's guidance, because it was, it's overwhelming. It's a lot to process. So.
Yeah, I was very grateful to serve in that capacity. First year, I earned my Master of Disaster pin that year. Oh. And I wear it proudly, as a matter of fact. I was such a dummy. The thing that we know up here, we forget that if you don't communicate it, then you don't know it. I know it, but you don't. But yeah, it was a wonderful honor and privilege, and Master Utek will absolutely, he has already been phenomenal at that. And that's the thing. As I've said at the clinics, I consider myself a manager. The other people like Master Utek and Master Wolverton and all the other members of the team were the ones that really did the instruction. And they are the best instructors of teachers of anything I've ever seen. They're phenomenal at leading people through that. I remember after that first time, seeing Master Britt and speaking with Master Britt at the Region 8 tournament. And I remember saying to him, "So sir, I'm never going to enjoy another one of those, am I?" Meaning the clinic. And he just looked at me and laughed and patted me on the shoulder and said, nodded. Because, we go there to train, and that's, of course, the enjoyment, I shouldn't have put it that way, but that's the way I phrased it with him. The enjoyment is something totally different. Now we enjoyed Saturday night, seeing you guys do so well in the test. That was the enjoyment. But hopefully, we'll be virtual in the spring, and hopefully the year after that, we'll be able to sweat together again. But it's a great experience. There's always something to learn. The two-way street between the candidates and the team and myself never cease to amaze me. It's like, how many times have you led a class where something just boom, it's like, hey, I never thought of that before. That happened on a daily, maybe an hourly basis at the Master's Clinic for many of us. It's just, one of the things that I hope I got across, I don't know if I mentioned this to you specifically in your group, but I think it was our first year as candidates, might have been the second year as candidates. One of the masters told us a story about how he basically said, you guys are farmers. Think of yourself as farmers. You've spent all these years tending your crops. You've weeded, you've sprayed, bug killer, done whatever fertilized, whatever it took to grow those crops, you've done. And there they are. You're already a master, just like you're already a farmer. You just have to harvest those crops now. The clinic and the test are harvest time. That's what you're here to do. You've already got it. You've got that belt around your waist. Do what you have to do to harvest it. And, some of us mess up. I really lament the whole social media aspect of that clinic these days, because people post things left and right. And I've had to be the bad cop and say, you posted this on Facebook last night, and that's just stupid. Knock it off, be the hard guy and do that kind of stuff. But at the same time, we have the sharing that takes place there. And as we have to recognize that this is a doorway we pass through to go to the next room. It's that mountain we climb, like Master Raver tells a story of how, you climb up this mountain of Tongsudo and you get to the top and it's like, yeah, I got to the top. And then you look and there's all these other mountains around that you got to climb, right? And that's what the Master's Clinic is. Do what you're supposed to do it how you're supposed to do it, and you'll be fine. It's getting rid of the ego that I think some candidates have had some difficulty with. Because, you're a big guy, you're a big shot, and you're dojang with those 3 stripes, and you're telling people what to do all the time. It's hard to let go of that and sit back and be a white belt again. But the team was always very, very good at helping the candidates realize that.
I talk about that with my students a lot, and I don't think they quite grasp it. Why I say, like, I got my first year was 2015. I was like, if I could take the information I know now, like I feel like I'm light years better. I'm older, I'm probably a little slower, but me as a third dan then is it's nowhere, it's not even a competition. Like, I would smoke that guy now. And then you look at like first degree, second degree, and you look back and, like you said, you think you were really good, and then you realize that you were still on the journey and still on the journey.
Right. Yeah, you get much more efficient, don't you?
Yes.
You don't waste as much anymore. It's like, okay,
Absolutely.
yeah, you get all crazy there third day, and I'll just sit back and pop. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's probably the thing I talk about the most is being efficient with our movement. Mm-hmm. No extra moves, no superfluous motion, extra steps or anything.
And the similarities between the stuff we do, we don't have 10,000 techniques. We have 4, stuff like that.
So I was trying to think today when I was getting ready, when we went the day we went, the last day of the clinic, you played a song for us, and I can't think, was it By the End? Was it by the band The End? Is there, am I
no
Master Falsenut's watching, maybe he remembers what the song was.
I think it was
Today's the Day, or This Is the Day, or
the Day. Yeah, it's by the greatest band name ever, the
I knew it was the something.
This is the day your life is going to change. Yeah, that was before the test. Yeah.
I remember riding in the van, and it's still dark out, and you just hold up your phone and playing that, and somehow never heard that song before.
Still have it on my phone, as a matter of fact.
Still.
Nice synth pop song. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was it was about kind of grasping the moment, like understanding what the moment was, and it is just another day, but it's an important day in the life of a martial artist that have spent countless hours and years to get to that point.
Right.
So thank you for kind of pushing us in the right direction at that moment.
That's it's one, as instructors, that's one of the weird things we face, isn't it? Is that We stand up in front, we tell people what to do, we give them suggestions and things, but ultimately, it's like the whole "you can lead a horse to water" thing.
Mhm.
And it's like being a high school teacher is the same way. I can lead my students to knowledge, but I can't make them think. And any credit that any of our students have, or any people in our charge, like the candidates and the masters, that's your credit. And certainly our instructors have something to do with it. But I can only be as good as I make myself. You can cajole. I mean, Master Casarano could make me breathe so heavy I suck the paint off the walls, like I said, but unless I do it, it's not going to happen. And that, I think, one of the strongest lessons in Tongsudo, and what I try to use with my own children and my students in Tongsudo, but my students in high school history too, is take ownership of what you're doing. Realize that it's you that makes yourself better. It's easy for us psychologically, very easy to blame an external. I can't do this because I'm too old, or I'm too slow, or I'm too this, that, and the other thing, right? And we just give ourselves an excuse not to try because it's easier that way. But when I take ownership for it, right, I tell my students all the time, I'm sure you're the same way, I have a good front stance because I worked on it. If you don't have one, it's because you're not doing it. I know I told you a million times what a good front stance is. Do it. It's Tongsu do, right? Yeah, not Tongsu talk about it, not Tongsu think about it. It's Tongsu do it.
Yeah.
Like,
Awesome. Oh, hey, believe it or not, we're at the hour mark.
oh yeah, wow.
Do you have any closing thoughts or things you want to share with us?
I don't know. The thing, one of the valuable things of Tongsudo, of course, is that the martial art. Your comment on songs got me thinking about music. And one of my hobbies, I just love music. I'm not a musician. I just listen to it. But it never ceases to amaze me that, as a history teacher, I know that there has never been any culture or society anywhere at any time in history that hasn't had music. Everybody, whether it's just pounding on a coconut or whatever, everybody has had music. That means it's something we need, not something we want, something we need. And, God, I can't wait for live music to come back again. I remember, I think it was the first time my wife is a huge Elton John fan. So I got tickets when he played in Allentown one time. We went to Elton John, and all I could think of is how there were so many people in this arena, tens of thousands of people from all walks of life, all brought together because of that man playing the piano on stage. And Tongsudo does the same thing. I mean, consider the backgrounds that we're from. A factory worker turned school teacher, medical professionals like you have in your family, Master Geiter and his construction business that he used to run. Master Horwath is a world-renowned, he won't like me saying this, a world-renowned computer security guy, right? And, Mr. Glickman has his own business, and Mr. Cuddy worked at a bank after he, was not a full-time Marine anymore, and these so many different people from so many different, as I said, walks from life, all brought together. And it starts to make you realize that, again, this might be committing heresy here. It's not the Tongsudo that's important. It's the connections you make with the other people you're training with. Master Midas, Master Robinson, Masters Hull and Pearsall from the old days, Master Fisher, Master Fattori, these people are my brothers. And it's the connections that you make with the people that are most important. The martial arts just serves as a vehicle for that. And you learn to appreciate that. And that's the greatest thing of this pursuit, is that, you just don't want to stop, because I'm going to miss you if we don't train, right? I'm going to miss you. So I don't want to miss you. So I'm going to keep training, right? And that's it. I don't know. There you go.
No,
So
that's perfect.
that was a bit sappy. Got to get the
No,
tissues
good.
out and all that stuff.
Real quick, Master Anderson says thank you for sharing your knowledge, Chris Anderson.
Very kind, sir. Thank you.
Master Foshnot, Craig Foshnot says it was special to be the first candidate class under you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time today, sir.
Thank you.
I think we finished the year off with some great stories and sharing. So I appreciate you joining.
I hope so. Hey, everybody watching. He agreed to answer questions about himself. So see, I'm broadcasting it out there. You cannot go back on that, sir, because we want to know about you too.
Are you good? Are you offering to be the interviewer?
Yeah, I'll do that.
All right.
You let me know what day's good for you. I'll send you a list of questions.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm serious.
All right, we'll talk.
All right, there we go. All right.
Tong Su.
Tong Su, sir. Take care. Thank you. Happy New Year to you and everybody else. Hugs to the family for me, sir.
Will do. Bye.
See ya.